Nia Carter, 15 years old, stood at the heavy double doors of Hawthorne Hills High's gymnasium. Her heart pounded beneath the oversized burgundy hoodie she'd borrowed from her father. In her hand was a crumpled application form, folded and unfolded so many times that the corners had gone soft like fabric. Beyond those doors lay the final round of cheer tryouts, where applause echoed, flips landed in unison, and more than anything, they waited. The girls. Nia wasn't blind. She'd seen the posters, the past yearbook photos, the social media reels. Not a single face looked like hers. Hawthorne Hills High's cheer squad had existed for decades, filled with blonde-haired, fair-skinned girls who'd been born and bred in this town like it was part of their DNA. And now there was Nia. Dark brown skin, tight curls pulled back into a clean bun. Her knees were steady, but her mind was stretched taut. She took a deep breath, reached for the handle, and stepped inside. The chatter in the gym cut off like someone had hit mute. 20 heads turned, 20 confused stares blinked at her in sync. Even the squeak of her sneakers on the polished hardwood sounded like an intrusion. At the far end of the gym stood Haley Morgan Team, Captain School Darling poster girl of the cheer squad. Arms folded, ice blue eyes narrowing in challenge. Her glossed lips barely pressed together, but the message was clear. You don't belong here. Nia walked past them, not faster, not slower than usual, just enough to let the silence wrap around her like a second skin. Name, Coach Daniels asked from behind the judge's table, clipboard in hand. Nia Carter. Her voice was calm, deliberate. Daniels gave a small nod. You ready to perform? Yes, ma'am. The music kicked in. This was it. The moment everyone in the room would define her. Not by her skin, but by her jumps, her form, her rhythm. Nia let her body move with the beat. Every motion crisp, deliberate. She wasn't just smiling, she was commanding the floor. While others seemed to float, Nia landed with grounded power, as if each jump wasn't just athletic, it was ideological. From the corner of her eye, she saw Haley nudge the girl beside her. Tinsley. They whispered and snickered. But Nia didn't flinch. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Let them doubt you. Doubt is the best disguise. When the music stopped, a heavy pause filled the room. Not discomfort, confusion. Nia had just cracked the foundation of a long-standing tradition. Coach Daniels looked up from her clipboard. Strong execution. Timing was precise. Clearly well-rehearsed. Nia gave a small nod and stepped off the mat. Only when she reached the edge of the court did she finally let out a slow breath. Haley stepped forward for her routine. As Nia walked away, she could feel Haley's eyes tracking her, not blank anymore, but calculating. 2 hours later, the final roster was posted on the bulletin board. 20 names, one sheet of paper, typed, printed, taped up as the room filled with breathless anticipation. Nia hung back as the other girls rushed forward. Some screamed, some cried. Others hugged and bounced in excitement. Slowly the crowd thinned. Then silence. A new name had appeared on the list. Thiesker 14, Nia Carter. It stood out like an ink blot on a white wedding dress. Someone whispered, They really picked her. Tinsley muttered, probably just to make the squad look diverse. A small laugh slipped out. Then no one said anything. Nia didn't cry. She didn't smile either. She read her name, turned, and walked past Haley, whose practiced smile had vanished like lip gloss, washed away by rain. You know this doesn't mean anything, right? Haley said just loud enough for Nia to hear. One mistake, one stumble, that's all it'll take. Nia stopped, turned her head slightly. Then I won't stumble. Her name, Nia Carter, sat on line 14 of the plain white sheet pinned to the main bulletin board. Under the dim hallway lights, the letters stood sharp and stark like ink puncturing the silence that had swallowed the room. Around her, whispers dropped like a light drizzle. Every murmur, every glance that landed on her name carried its own weight. Surprise, anger, suspicion, and fear. A blonde ponytail with a red bow thudded softly against the wall. Haley Morgan clenched her fists. Her knuckles turned a pale, ghostly white. Ryder Chase, the football team captain, Haley's boyfriend, stood behind her, brows furrowed. One corner of his mouth twitched like he was about to say something, but he didn't. Tinsley glanced at the list, then back at Haley, whispering, How did she even make it? This is so wrong. Haley didn't answer. She stepped forward her high top, stopping less than 2 feet from the bulletin board. Nia still stood at a distance under the flicker of a tired, fluorescent light. She didn't need to push through the crowd. She already knew her name was there, and now so did the whole school. The silence rolled through the hallway like a pressure wave. No one jumped in joy, no one screamed her name, but every pair of eyes turned to her, like a challenge unspoken but unmistakable. She walked forward, letting her eyes sweep the list. Just enough to confirm. No double-checking, no hesitation. Her name was there, bold, undeniable. Like a mark no one could erase. Someone scoffed behind her. A girl's voice, maybe Brittany, maybe Tinsley, muttered, "Well done, Westfield. Guess we're officially diverse now." Another voice chimed in, "Can't wait for the hashtag. It's inclusive Eagles." But Nia didn't react. She stood tall, arms relaxed at her sides. Her face wasn't beaming, just a soft smile, so subtle it could have been calm or defiance. Haley stepped closer. Her footsteps echoed measured, deliberate, like someone tapping out a countdown before battle. "Congrats," Haley said, voice low and even. "I guess every team needs something new now and then." Nia turned. Her eyes weren't angry. They didn't drop. "Not something new," she said. "Just something right on time." Haley tilted her head, lips curling into a smile as thin as thread. "Sure, but around here, one wrong step is game over." Nia nodded. "Good. I don't plan on misstepping." As she left the hallway, she passed Ryder. He didn't say anything, just looked at her. It wasn't the usual sneer, not quite disdain. It was the look of someone suddenly aware that an unpredictable variable had just entered the field, and it wasn't in his playbook. That afternoon in the cheerleaders' locker room, the air was still heavy. Haley sat in front of the mirror, dabbing off her makeup. "We're not letting this go too far," she said to Brittany. Tinsley stood nearby, scrolling through Instagram. "You see this? The school's already posted the official roster. Her name's on it. Comments are getting nasty." Haley turned her eyes colder than any mascara could hide. "We'll show her exactly who we are." Meanwhile, in the modest kitchen of the Carter house, Mr. Jackson was boiling water for his daughter's tea. He didn't have to ask the result. He saw it in Nia's smile, the kind he hadn't seen since they moved here. "When they called my name," she said quietly, "the room just went still." "Well," he replied, "sometimes the first victory is just making them listen." But they both knew being heard was one thing. Being accepted, that was something else entirely. And the real fight had only just begun. The locker room reeked of stale sweat and cheap deodorant. Nia Carter stood at her cubby, carefully folding her practice top, doing her best to ignore the persistent silence that had followed her since day one. The other girls clustered in noisy groups, laughter bouncing off the white tile walls, but not once bouncing her way. She kept her head down, focused. She didn't expect anyone to hand her a towel. She wasn't waiting for someone to reach out. Practice had ended 5 minutes ago, but Nia knew better than to leave early. Not after what happened yesterday. She wasn't walking those halls alone again, not if she could help it. She zipped her gym bag slowly. Then a voice called out, "Hey, New Eagle." Nia looked up. Ryder Chase, the golden boy of the school, football captain, Haley's boyfriend, and without needing to say it, the walking embodiment of everything Nia didn't represent. He leaned against the girls' locker room doorway like the whole athletic wing belonged to him. Varsity jacket slung over one shoulder, helmet in hand, his smirk a half laugh, half challenge. "Pretty sure you're in the wrong locker room," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. A few girls turned. Brittany giggled. Haley, reapplying her lipstick in the mirror, didn't bother hiding her smile. Nia didn't flinch. She closed her locker, gently turned, and met Ryder's eyes. "This is the cheer squad's locker room," she replied, voice steady. "Looks like your GPS is off." Ryder's grin faded slightly. Before he could clap back, Haley chimed in, sweet as syrup laced with venom. "Come on, Nia. Don't be mad at Ryder. He probably thought you were here to clean up. Old habits die hard, you know." The words were light, but everyone in the room caught the undertone. More laughter, snickering now. Nia's jaw tensed. Her father's words floated just behind her lips, ready to surface. "Don't react emotionally. Let your calm make them uncomfortable. And so she smiled. Light. Sharp. I don't clean up after people beneath me. The air shifted. They hadn't seen that coming. Haley stopped mid-stroke with her lipstick. Ryder's brow furrowed, struggling to keep his composure. Let's see how long you last, Ryder muttered. This team doesn't run on charity. I'm not here on charity, Nia shot back. I earned my spot. What about you? Or does it help to be dating the captain? Color flushed Ryder's face. Haley stepped forward, voice icy. This squad has standards, Carter. Nia stepped in too. Just one step. Then raise them. Right then, Coach Daniels walked in. She paused just long enough to sense the tension in the room, the static in the air, the daggered glances. Nia stood still, breathing evenly, hands loose at her sides. Coach Daniels scanned the room and then said nothing. She just walked into her office and shut the door. No questions, no warnings, no protection, just silence. And that silence hit harder than any insult. That evening in the car ride home, her father didn't need to ask. How was it? He said quietly. Nia hesitated. They asked if I was in the wrong locker room. He didn't laugh, didn't look shocked, just nodded once. They think you don't belong, he said. That's your advantage. How is that an advantage? Nia asked. He glanced over at her gaze, steady and unblinking. Because while they're busy underestimating you, you're getting stronger. But Nia knew something else too. This wasn't just underestimation. This was erasure. They didn't want her to fail. They wanted her gone. And she'd be damned if she gave them the satisfaction. Wednesday morning. When Nia Carter opened her locker, the padlock had been pried open. Inside, her books were out of order. Some textbook pages were dog-eared, and her notebook, carefully rewritten just the night before, had a single clean slash through the middle of her formula page as if carved by something sharp. No one stood nearby. No laughter erupted. There were no slurs scribbled across the locker door. Just a silence too deliberate to be anything but calculated. She stood there for a moment. Didn't yell, didn't ask. Just took a deep breath and began putting her books back in order. Her fingers brushed against a folded scrap of paper tucked inside her practice journal. No name. Just 3 words written in red ballpoint ink, not our eagle. At the same time, a new Instagram account had appeared. We Real Eagle Spirit. The profile picture, an eagle, its eyes crossed out with a black smear of ink. The first post was a zoomed-in photo of Nia standing alone by the practice field. The caption read, diversity quota or just pity points. The second post was a poorly photoshopped image. Nia's face pasted onto a janitor cleaning the gym floor. The caption, cleaning up mistakes since 2025. Hashtags used, you're not my eagle. She doesn't belong. She your token mascot. In the hallways, people still smiled at her, still gave her casual shoulder pats, still said things like, hey Nia, and keep it up out there. Words as smooth as polished glass. No stutters, no pauses. But behind her, phones flicked to life. Fingers swiped screens. Eyes darted from devices to her, then away again. Tight-lipped smirks replaced open mockery. Silence cloaked judgment in civility. Tinsley whispered something to Brittany. Both glanced at Nia, then turned away. No one spoke to her, but everyone was speaking about her. That evening, Nia sat at her desk. Her study lamp cast a pale glow on her hands, slightly trembling. Her phone lay face down, but notifications kept pulsing through the screen like tiny warning flares. She typed Real Eagle Spirit into the search bar. 7 posts, nearly 300 likes, half of them from classmates. She knew if she reported it to the school, there might be an investigation. But she also knew nothing was clear-cut enough to blame anyone. And when it's dismissed as just kids being kids, only one person ends up carrying the weight. The victim. The next afternoon in the practice gym, Lily, one of the cheerleaders who had never spoken to her, quietly walked over. She didn't say much, just joined Nia in stretching side by side. After a long silence, Lily murmured, "You're not imagining it. They really do hate you because you don't look like them." Nia didn't reply, but the soft nod she gave said everything. She understood, and she was ready. That night, Naya placed her phone on the desk. She opened the drawer and pulled out the old notebook her father had given her in 7th grade. On the first page was a handwritten message. Your strength doesn't lie in what you can do. It lies in doing it when everyone believes you can't. She turned to a blank page and wrote the first line behavior log. Record everything, every face, every detail. She wouldn't scream down hallways. She wouldn't cry for show. She would document, remember, and choose her moment. Because Nia Carter hadn't come here for pity. She'd come to dismantle the blueprint. The Carter kitchen was like it always was, quiet, neat, and filled with the scent of hand-brewed black coffee. But tonight, under the soft amber light of the hanging bulb, the air felt heavier than usual. Nia sat silently at the dining table, her fingers laced tightly, eyes fixed on the wood grain. On her phone screen, the latest post from the anonymous, rare real Eagle Spirit account still glowed. Every time she considered deleting the app, her finger would freeze, because deleting it wouldn't make it disappear in real life. Jackson Carter entered tall frame, broad shoulders, carrying a steaming mug and a small box of bandages. "What's with the silence?" he asked. Not harsh, just low, steady, and unmistakably clear like a shot breaking through fog. "Nothing," Nia replied, trying to sound composed, but her breath gave a subtle tremble away. He didn't press. He set the mug in front of her, then sat down across the table. His hand rotated the ring on his index finger, the only thing he kept from the military besides an old service badge. After a long pause, he asked, "Has it started?" Nia looked up, caught off guard. "How did you know?" He shrugged, half smiling. "I saw the way they looked at you back on day 1 of tryouts." Nia bit her lip. "I thought if I was good enough, they'd accept me." Jackson studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Good isn't always enough, baby girl." Then he spoke slowly, every word landing with a soldier's precision. "In war, it's not always guns you face. Sometimes the weapons are glances, silence, fake smiles, things that seem harmless but chip away at you little by little." Nia swallowed hard. "I get it, but it's exhausting, Dad." He nodded. "Feeling tired means you're still human. But quitting, that's not allowed. Because where you stand right now, if you fall, 100 people will clap." He walked to the living room and rummaged through an old drawer. A few minutes later, he returned and placed something in front of her. A weathered brown leather notebook stained faintly with red dust. "Tactical journal," he said. "I kept it while patrolling in Kandahar. Not about fighting, about surviving when you're surrounded by people who want you gone." Nia opened to the first page. The handwriting was bold, clean, deliberate. "Observe before you react. Control your eyes before you speak. Choose the moment before you strike." "You're doing better than I ever expected," he said. "You didn't scream in the gym. You didn't go online playing the victim. You took a step back and waited. Because I'm scared if I speak up, they'll say I'm just playing the sympathy card." Nia whispered. Jackson nodded, voice steady. "Not everyone who yells is right, and not everyone who's quiet is weak." Later that night, Nia picked up her phone. She opened her notes app and titled a new page, Operation Eagle. She began typing were followers of the real Eagle Spirit account. Those who shared the photos. Timestamps on each post. Who had the angle to take that shot? "What do you think I should do?" she asked. Jackson smirked. "I think you let them keep underestimating you." "Wait, what?" Nia blinked. "Because the most dangerous enemy isn't the one who's strong. It's the one you didn't see coming until it was too late." That night, Nia didn't cry. She didn't stay up late scrolling through her phone. She slept, peacefully, for the first time in days. Because what filled her now wasn't rage. It was clarity. She knew she wouldn't strike back right away. She'd do it like her father had taught her, to survive war, gather intel, analyze aim, and hit once. Just once. And when the time came, she wouldn't need to raise her voice. She'd make the whole school fall silent. Music thundered through the gymnasium. The stage lights spun in rehearsal mode, casting rotating beams across the floor. Down below, cheer squads broke into their groups, rehearsing final moves for the upcoming homecoming dress rehearsal. The main performance was only 3 days away. Nia stood in formation, drawing in a deep breath. The new uniform, Hawthorne Hill's signature silver blue, with a sharp V-neck, hugged her petite frame just right. Her hair was pulled into a high ponytail, curls fanned out like wings. This was the moment she had imagined 100 times, and now it was finally real. Position 3B, Nia. Coach Daniels called out, eyes still fixed on her clipboard. Nia jogged to her spot. Haley was in front, Brittany behind her. From across the floor, she heard the soft rhythm of sneakers tapping as Tinsley warmed up. No one said a word to her, but every eye tracked Nia's every breath. The music kicked in. The formation began to move. First move, flawless. The spin solid. The chants and arm motions crisp and precise like Swiss timing. Then came the lift. The signature eagle stunt, 2 bases, hoist, 1 flyer, soars with wings outstretched. Nia ran forward, arms wide. Then a soft snap, and the world flipped upside down. She hit the ground hard, rolled once, and skidded across the polished gym floor. Her skirt tore open at the side, her knee scraped raw, her hair spilling loose. A strangled gasp escaped her throat. Eyes wide, stunned. The entire gym went silent. 3 seconds. Then laughter. No applause. No gasps of concern. Just laughter. Someone in the back row pulled out a phone. The shutter clicked once. Then again. Then again. Coach Daniels walked over, but not in a rush. She stared at Nia for a second. Didn't ask if she was okay. Just glanced around and said coldly, "Next time, check your laces before you hit the floor." Nia sat up abruptly and looked down. Her shoelaces weren't untied. They were nearly severed. Not an accident. Sabotage. Haley stepped closer, angled slightly to the side. She leaned down, whispering just loud enough for a few nearby girls to hear, "Not quite eagle material, huh?" That half-smile, gorgeous, venomous. Nia looked up. Her eyes held no anger, only a chilling clarity. She didn't speak. She stood, grabbed her bag, walked off the mat, limping skirt, torn knee bleeding. But she walked straight, didn't look back, didn't cry. That night, the video spread like wildfire. The Real Eagle Spirit account posted it within 30 minutes. Caption, "When eagles try to fly too high, they crash." Hashtags, "Just flopped feather," "Shush your token tumble," "Shish, not my eagle." In her bedroom, Nia sat on her bed. The phone screen still glowed. The video played on repeat. Laughter emojis, mocking comments, each one a blade. She snapped the phone shut, took a sharp breath, stood, left her room, headed down to the basement, not to write, not to think, to punch. Because sometimes before you can be clear, you have to let it out. At the bottom of the stairs in the shadows, Jackson Carter stood still. He had been waiting for this moment. That night, the basement beneath the Carter home glowed under a dim yellow ceiling bulb. Old U.S. military posters hung curled on the walls. A worn punching bag swayed gently in the center of the room, its metal chain creaking with each hit. No laughter, no phones, no social media, just the sound of fists hitting leather. Nia punched, again and again, steady, hard, precise. Her eyes were bloodshot. Tears slid down, not with sobs, not with noise, just quiet streams like blood flowing backward into the heart. She didn't know if she was hitting to release rage, to protest, or simply to keep from falling apart. In the corner of the room, Jackson Carter stood silently. He stood near the door, closed the curtain gently, then stepped forward with the grounded stride of a man who had walked through war, unhurried, unshaken, immovable. "That's enough," he said low. Nia threw another punch, then another, then stopped, resting her forehead on the bag. Sweat beaded on her brow, but it was the pain beneath that burned more fiercely. Her voice came rough, cracked. "I did everything right. I stayed quiet. I worked hard. I didn't stir drama. I tried to make them accept me." Jackson nodded, but his voice was solid, unwavering. "You don't need their acceptance." She turned, eyes blurred. "Then what do I need?" He stepped closer, resting a firm but gentle hand on her shoulder. Not to hit back, to hit smart. He led her to a small wooden table cluttered with notebooks, old maps, and a miniature military formation model. Jackson unrolled a training diagram and infiltration plan from his time in service. "I was once deployed to a village that saw me as the enemy. Not one smile, Not 1 ounce of trust. "So what did you do?" Nia asked. Jackson didn't answer right away. He pointed to the center of the map. "I didn't destroy. I didn't scream. I listened. I watched. And then I let the enemy undo themselves from the inside." He turned to her, voice sharp but steady. "You don't need to shatter the system. You just need to strike its weak point and let it crumble on its own." Nia sat down. She opened her notebook. The list she'd started the week before had grown real Eagle Spirit posts at specific times. Users who frequently reshare from that account. School security cameras during the fall. Brittany and Tinsley's exact positions during the accident. Then she wrote a new line, "Retaliation not with fists, but with truth." Jackson stood silently for a moment. Then he said, "They think you're just a lone pawn. What they don't know is you're the daughter of a Marine." From his shirt pocket, he pulled out a small chain, a military tag engraved with "Semper Fi, always faithful." He placed it in her palm. "Not for protection, for a reminder you're not fighting alone." Nia gripped the tag, and just like that, the pain, the falls, the mocking laughter, they were no longer wounds. They were ammunition. She didn't need to scream. She didn't need to argue. She didn't need to beg for fairness. She would prove it with evidence, and she'd make her return in a way that left the whole school speechless. In the shadows of that basement, the two sat side by side. One had walked through real gunfire. The other was facing invisible bullets-word stares, silence sharp as shrapnel. But they both knew the greatest battle is always the one to stay true to yourself. Nia Carter's daily routine began to shift. She still got to school early, still left on time, still showed up to every practice, but now every step she took came with a silent mission observe. She carried a small notebook tucked inside her jacket pocket. It looked like a class planner, but inside were coded notes. "Zo 7:43, Tinsley whispered to Haley while glancing at Nia. 10:12, Brittany pulled out her phone in the locker room, camera angled toward locker, Jaka 14 Nia's. 12:45, Coach Daniels received a text, glanced at Nia when she entered the cafeteria. 16 Neon, or Zero. Our Real Eagle Spirit posted a story that aligned exactly with Brittany's unexplained 10-minute absence from the auxiliary gym. No one noticed a thing. She still shouted the cheers on beat, still landed every move, still played the quiet part. But inside, Nia was no longer the hunted. She had become the hunter. That evening in her room, she plugged in her earbuds, opened her laptop, and scrubbed through audio files. The interface blinked softly as cut clips played back. "If she falls again, at least we won't look bad." Brittany's voice hushed but crystal clear. "We're just helping her realize where she belongs." Tinsley followed by a quiet snicker. Nia paused. She didn't laugh. She didn't rage. She simply marked the timestamp and filed the clip under Phase 4 exposure. One afternoon after practice, she was packing up when a quiet voice drifted from behind. "I see it. I see what they're doing to you." Nia turned. It was Lily Chen, the quietest girl on the team. Asian American, always on the edge of the formation, soft-spoken like a shadow. She never involved herself in drama. Always stayed clear. But today her eyes didn't dart or shy away. They were focused. "I've seen Haley change the choreography. Just for your row. Your locker, only one open after lunch last Tuesday. And Brittany. She had scissors near the props the day before you fell." Nia said nothing. No nod, no denial. Lily hesitated. "I know what silence looks like. I've lived in it for years. But silence isn't always safety." The two girls sat on the physical ed hallway steps. The late afternoon sky outside flared deep orange. Lily exhaled, her voice opening up for the first time. "You're not the first girl they've tried to push out. You're just the first one who didn't scare easy." Nia looked at her, then asked plainly, "Why now?" Lily smiled, a calm, neutral kind of smile. "Because I see something different in you. You don't just endure. You're recording, remembering, reframing. That's power." Nia pulled out her notebook, tore a sheet, and sketched a basic cheer team map marking Haley, Tinsley, and Brittany's positions from each practice. Lily took out her phone and opened her photo gallery. "I didn't mean to spy. I just..." Take a lot of pictures. Some might help. One image showed the squad mid-rehearsal the day before Naya's fall. In the background, Brittany near the prop bags. Her hand was holding something metallic. Scissors. Nia stared at it, didn't say a word, then nodded. For the first time since she made the squad, she wasn't alone. She had an ally now, a quiet spy. And together behind the hush, they were planning their counterattack. Wednesday morning, the A-wing hallway buzzed with the usual noise. But at the far end inside a dim, rarely used practice room where the cheer squad kept props, there was a silence that demanded attention. From the ceiling corner, a mini camera the size of a fingertip recorded every movement below. That camera, not school property. It belonged to Jaden Martinez, a quiet tech-loving classmate from Nia's advanced math course. Back in the 8th grade, Ryder and his crew had bullied Jaden for wearing a Star Wars shirt on Spirit Day, but Jaden never made a scene. He built robots, installed covert camera systems in his backpack, and could wipe digital trails like a pro-level hacker. When Nia had told him, "I don't need revenge, I just need proof," he'd nodded. Then let's record the truth. 3 days after the camera went up, Nia received a message from Jaden. "You'll want to see this." She clicked play. The footage began. The setting prop storage room. The angle slightly tilted from overhead. The subject Tinsley Morgan alone. She walked straight to the color printer, pulled out a sheet of school-labeled A4 paper, laid an image face up on the tray. The printer whirred. The camera auto-adjusted, zooming softly. The printout emerged a meme. A photo of Nia falling on stage, digitally altered. Bold red letters, "Not our team." Tinsley smirked, cut the paper into pieces, stuffed them into an envelope. Nia stared at the screen, not in shock, but because the time had come. She forwarded the footage to Lily. A reply came almost instantly. "I can help distribute it. Right time, right crowd. The curtain will rise and the show will begin." That night in the familiar basement, Nia opened her laptop. Her file labeled Phase 4 Exposure was now updated clip of Tinsley printing and cutting meme images. Audio of the Get Nia Out conversation. Photo of Brittany holding scissors near props the day before the fall. List of students following and sharing. One real eagle spirit behind her. Jackson Carter stood silent, arms crossed like a commander waiting for 0 hour. "You have your ammunition," he said. "Now choose the right moment to pull the trigger." Homecoming day. The school was decked in silver and blue banners, welcoming alumni, parents, faculty, and hundreds of guests. The gym was packed. Rows of spectators, classmates, teachers, former cheerleaders watched from the stands. Some had whispered about Nia. Some had doubted. Today, they were all watching. Haley stood front and center, undisputed queen of the floor. Nia positioned in the back row. No spotlight, no microphone. But today, she didn't need center stage to own the room. As the cheer squad launched into their first performance, Jaden, seated quietly at the tech booth, clicked a hidden command on his laptop. The LED screen behind the stage, typically used for lighting effects, flickered, then lit up with a video. The music stopped for a split second. Tinsley Morgan appeared on screen, caught mid-print holding the meme, "Not our team." Gasps spread across the gym. Haley whipped around. Coach Daniels stood abruptly from the judges' table. The screen continued, a slow cascade of revelations like a digital slideshow. A photo of Brittany, scissors in hand near the props, a screenshot of an anonymous DM from Real Eagle Spirit, an audio clip. "We just need her to quit herself." Finally, the screen went black. White text appeared. "Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means we were waiting for the right time to speak truth." NC. At first, nothing. No sound. No reaction. Then, a single clap. Lily. Then another. Then the whole gym rose in applause. Not for the girl in the center, not for the one with the spotlight, but for a black girl once buried in the back row who now owned the entire stage. The Monday after homecoming. No more snickering. No more judgmental glances. Only a heavy silence seeping through the hallways. In class, phones lay face down on desks. No one made eye contact with Nia Carter. Not because they hated her, but because none of them had the courage to pretend anymore. On Instagram, the account Real Eagle Spirit had vanished overnight. But Nia had backed up everything. Every post, every story, every snide caption. She compiled it into a thick binder, every image numbered cataloged. Below each one, a timestamp engagement stats and names of repeat sharers were noted. In her home study, she pinned the images to the wall in a timeline, like a crime board built by a professional investigator. Then came the second video clip from Jaden, this one from the locker hallway. The footage showed Haley, Tinsley, Brittany, and two other cheerleaders laughing together. There was no sound, but Jaden's AI subtitles read their lips. She doesn't belong. Let's remind her where she came from. The words, "she doesn't belong," came straight from Haley. Her face, stripped of the stage polish, revealed who she really was, a girl too used to control. But Nia didn't post the clip. She sent it straight to the administration, along with a full incident report, printed screenshots of racist posts, altered images, and the recorded audio planning to push Nia out. Within 48 hours, a disciplinary meeting was called. Coach Daniels was suspended for negligence and failure to address ethical violations. Haley and Brittany were temporarily removed from the cheer squad, pending formal investigation. The IP address of Real Eagle Spirit was traced back to a secondary email account created by Tinsley Morgan. Tinsley was banned from all extracurricular activities for the rest of the semester, but the most surprising part was how the entire student body responded. One photo spread like wildfire. A shot of Nia standing on the homecoming stage, haloed in spotlight, the words behind her, "Silence isn't weakness, it's waiting for the right time to speak." Over 9,000 internal shares across school networks statewide. Students of color, Black, Asian, Latinx, who'd once been invisible in the halls, began tagging Nia in their posts. She gave us a voice. She didn't just stand for herself, she stood for all of us. One morning as Nia entered the cafeteria, Ryder, Haley's ex, approached her. He handed her a folded note. No words, just a quiet bow of the head. Inside, "I know I stayed silent too long. I saw what they did. I didn't speak up, and that made me complicit. I'm sorry." Nia didn't respond. She folded the letter and slipped it into her pocket. She didn't need apologies. She didn't need a podium, because real justice is when truth proves itself without ever needing to scream. Later, Lily joined her during lunch and handed her a copy of the school magazine. The cover, Nia. Headline, "The girl who never yelled but made everyone listen." Meanwhile, on the far side of campus, Haley was spotted sitting alone. No makeup, no confident smirk. She scrolled through her phone, through old comments, old posts. One photo of Nia she'd once shared mockingly, now being mass reported by her former followers. A group of younger girls walked by. One turned back and asked, "Haley, remind us again, who didn't belong on the team?" Haley said nothing, just lowered her head. The girl who once laughed the loudest was now the only one too afraid to speak. 6:30 a.m., Wednesday. The campus of Hawthorne Hills was still quiet, mist curling around the rows of silver and blue flags. In her small bedroom, Nia Carter checked her email one last time. One click. That's all it would take to expose an entire system built on false smiles and buried cruelty. Everything was ready. The digital dossier was titled Eagle Files. Inside him, a compilation video of Brittany and Tinsley's bullying behavior. Original images that had been turned into memes, along with metadata pointing to the creator of Real Eagle Spirit. Audio clips of the cheer squad planning to get rid of the black girl. A technical analysis from Jaden tracing the anonymous posts back to an IP address in Haley's homeroom. A mapped timeline connecting every violation like a professional case file. Recipients, board hawthornehills.edu principal, .evansaschooldistrict.net, schoolpress@districtvoice.org, sender unknown, truth proton mail. Come subject line, urgent ethical violations inside Hawthorne Hills High Cheer program. No name, no return address, because the truth doesn't need a signature. 8:00 a.m. As the school bell rang and students began filing into campus, no one was snapping selfies or gossiping about pop quizzes because something had just dropped. A post spreading faster than wildfire. Public post. "Dear Eagles, this is what you're ignoring. While you chant Eagle Strong, a black student has been isolated, secretly filmed, and turned into a meme. While you cheer for being the #1 squad, someone's been printing her fall and posting it around the school. This is no longer personal. It's an ethical crack in our community. Beneath the post was a link to a Google Drive folder. Haley saw the post over breakfast. Her hand trembled slightly. She opened the drive and saw her own name. A chat log read, "She doesn't belong. Let's mess with her stuff again. She's too soft to fight." Within 30 minutes, over 800 students had accessed the files. Emails flooded the administration. Principal Evans received over 60 direct responses in the first hour alone, calling for an investigation, a school-wide discussion on racism and full transparency. In the front office, teachers were pulled into an emergency meeting. Coach Daniels, who had ignored Nia's fall, who had turned a blind eye for months, sat in silence. There were no defenders left, no excuses that could survive this. Outside, the atmosphere had shifted. Students erected a handmade sign outside the library. "The real Eagles don't stay silent." Justice. For Nia, Chuck's Dear Eagles. Printouts of the Dear Eagles letter were taped on bulletin boards in the cafeteria, even on the mirrors of the girls' restroom. The same restroom where mocking images of Nia once hung. In math class, Lily leaned over to Nia. "You triggered it, didn't you?" Nia smiled softly, eyes still on her textbook. "I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to make sure no one else has to go through what I did." That same hour, a public email from the district's Board of Education hit inbox's internal investigation notice. The administration of Hawthorne Hills High is launching an independent investigation into allegations of discrimination and student bullying. All evidence, anonymous or otherwise, will be reviewed seriously. Students, parents, and staff are encouraged to report truthfully. Jaden texted Nia, "I just checked the traffic, over 5,300 clicks already. You just rewrote how to fight bullying with calm, with clarity. No one's ever done it like you." Nia closed her laptop. No pride, no gloating. Just an unfamiliar peace like diffusing a bomb that had been ticking beneath her feet for months. She didn't destroy the system. She held up a mirror and made it watch itself unravel. Thursday, 10:00 a.m. Conference room, Hawthorne Hills High School. The air was thick like smoke in a war bunker. On one side of the table sat Principal Evans, trying to maintain composure. On the other, the parents of 3 cheerleaders, Haley Morgan, Tinsley Morgan, and Brittany Klein. In the center, a thick stack of printed pages, the Eagle files. Haley sat curled in her chair, hands clenched tight beneath the table. Tinsley tried to keep her cool, but her eyes kept flicking toward her mother. Brittany didn't even lift her head. Ryder stood silently in the corner, his sports jacket stripped of the captain patch. He'd just been removed from his leadership position, not because he acted, but because he stayed silent. Haley's mother slammed her hand on the table. "This is outrageous. My daughter is not a racist. She just reacted like any student would when her friend felt threatened." Principal Evans leaned forward. "Threatened? Ms. Carter never showed any aggression, yet she was filmed without consent, harassed online, and publicly humiliated. If that's not a victim, I don't know what is." Haley's mother snapped. "This is a witch hunt. They're targeting her because she's popular." Coach Daniels, also present, sat motionless. Her expression blank, but the tight line at her mouth betrayed something deeper. Guilt perhaps finally surfacing. Then the door opened. Jackson Carter entered. Military shirt, straight back, steady eyes. He didn't ask for permission, didn't introduce himself. He simply walked to the table and placed a slim but weighty folder in front of them. The bold title on the cover, School-Level Harassment Report, Witness Compiled Evidence. Principal Evans stood. "Mr. Carter, this is an internal—" Jackson raised his hand. He didn't need words for authority. "I'm not here to ask. I'm here to end something that never should have started." He turned eyes steady on Haley's mother. "My daughter is not your school's diversity project. Not a trophy, not a token to validate some fake moral high ground." He tapped the folder. "These are the images mocked, the audio stolen, the chats that stripped away her dignity. Every text, every post, another cut to the spirit of a girl who did nothing but try to belong." Silence. And the worst part, he added, was the silence of the adults. Then he turned to Coach Daniels. "Your silence made her punch a bag at night just to keep from screaming?" His voice dropped lower, but sharper than any blade. Silence made her bleed where no one could see. Silence made her fall, and no one reached out a hand. The room held its breath. Haley's mother opened her mouth to argue, but Jackson's eyes silenced her. Not with rage, but with the weight of a father who had no more to prove. Principal Evans swallowed his voice quiet. Mr. Carter, as head of this school, I sincerely apologize for what your daughter endured. We failed her. Jackson nodded once. Apology is the first step. Action is the only one that counts. The official decisions. Haley Morgan suspended for 2 weeks, permanently removed from the cheer squad. Tinsley Morgan under extended investigation, facing possible semester suspension. Coach Daniels reassigned no longer in charge of the cheer program. The school committed to holding quarterly diversity and racial awareness forums. As the meeting ended, Jackson didn't look back. He walked out the door toward the hallway. Where Nia stood waiting, he said nothing, just placed a hand on her shoulder. Firm, steady, their eyes met. No words were needed, because they both understood. Justice isn't a prize, it's what should have existed all along. The door had opened, the truth had been revealed, the guilty had been suspended, and like all storms, the sky eventually calmed. But not everyone welcomed the silence. At Hawthorne Hills High, the hallway stairs didn't disappear. They just split in 2 directions. One half of the students passed Nia and gave her quiet nods, looks of respect. You're the first person brave enough to do that. Thank you for standing up for people like me. I used to get body shamed all the time. I never spoke up. Now I will. But the other half, they avoided eye contact, whispered behind hands, and the side accounts lit up with posts. Drama queen, made it all up for attention. Suing the whole school because she couldn't take a few jokes. Congrats on ruining the cheer team. Feel proud. Nia saw them all. She didn't respond. She still showed up to school on time. Still wore the cheer uniform, even though the team was down to 5 members. Still nodded and smiled at the janitor at the gate. And she still trained in the gym, every motion precise, every count exact. No Brittany, no Haley, just the sound of her own breath and discipline. One afternoon after practice, as she wiped down the gym floor, she heard slow footsteps behind her. Coach Daniels. No tracksuit today, just a plain gray blouse, her hair pulled back, her eyes tired. She stopped, arms crossed. Looked at Nia for the first time without looking away. I thought you'd quit, after all of this. Nia didn't answer. She kept folding the cloth, wiping the last line of dust from the tiles. After a moment, Daniels sighed. Her voice, usually sharp, came out soft. Hoarse. Real. You didn't walk away. That means something. Not everyone is strong enough to stay after tearing down a broken system. Nia looked up calm and steady. I didn't want to tear it down. I just wanted to breathe like everyone else. Daniels gave a faint nod. First time in 12 years of teaching a student made me look at myself. It wasn't easy, but maybe it was necessary. They stood in silence for a beat. Then Daniels reached into her pocket and handed Nia a folded slip of paper. The school's honoring Students of the Month next month. The board nominated you to speak. Nia gave a small smile. Let the drama queen give a speech. Daniels shrugged. Or maybe the survivor who knew when silence could speak louder than anything. That night back in the familiar basement, Nia flipped open her Eagle campaign notebook and checked off a single line, survived without falling into hate. The next day she returned to the gym, not to practice alone, but to begin rebuilding a new team. Not of girls who needed to stand out, but of girls who knew how to stand together. Late November, Hawthorne Hills High was preparing for its annual Fall Festival, the biggest event of the year. As tradition, one student would be chosen to read the opening declaration at the ceremony. Usually that student was a cheer captain, an honor scholar, or the child of a school board member. And this year, the list of nominees looked no different. But when Principal Evans stepped into Class 10A and asked, who would like to nominate themselves? One hand went up, steady, unshaken, Nia Carter. The student council room that day was packed. Everyone waited to see what the drama girl would do. But Nia didn't bring a rehearsed speech. She stepped up to the podium, unfolded a small piece of paper, just a few lines. Then she began, her eyes calm, unwavering. When I joined the cheer team, I knew I didn't look like anyone else there. Not because of my talent, not because of my skin, but because I didn't fit the picture they were used to seeing on the wall. I was treated like an exception, like a policy checkbox, a diversity token, a sticker slapped on to make things look right. Heads lowered across the room. A few parents tightened their grip on their children's hands. At the faculty table, Coach Daniels looked up, no longer guarded. I wasn't picked to fit into someone else's perfect picture. I was picked because I'm real. I worked for real. I hurt for real. I fell for real. And I stood back up for real. Down front, a group of students of color sitting in the first row for the first time nodded gently. Small, muffled sobs came from the left side of the auditorium. If this speech makes you uncomfortable, maybe we need to be uncomfortable to start looking at things differently. Her eyes locked on the corner of the room where the students who once shared posts from Real Eagle Spirit sat. No names were spoken, but everyone knew who her gaze was for. I don't want pity. I don't need anyone to cry with me. All I hope is that when another student stands where I once stood, you won't stay silent. She paused, then lowered the paper and looked straight into the crowd. Don't pick me because I'm different. Pick me because I earned it. The room froze. No one coughed. No one clapped too early. Then from the very back, Jaden stood up and clapped. Slow, firm, unapologetic. Lily stood beside him. A freshman stood up next. Then an entire row. And soon the whole auditorium rose in applause. Not for pretty words, but for unpolished, unstoppable truth. After the speech, as students filtered out, Nia slipped quietly through the side exit. Principal Evans caught up with her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. Thank you, Nia. You didn't just represent the school. You redrew its moral map. That evening in the familiar basement at home, Jackson poured 2 glasses of orange juice. He handed one to his daughter, smiling gently. Not everyone needs to shout to be heard, but if you ever have to speak, then today you made the whole world. Stop and listen. Monday, 7:00 p.m., District 18 School Board Room, Minnesota. For the first time in 15 years, all 12 seats on the school board were filled. No absences, no proxy votes. The air was tense tight as a drawn bowstring. Sitting in the front rows were parents. Many were people of color. Immigrants and faces that had remained silent for years out of fear their children would be treated unfairly. In their hands, printed copies of 2 documents. I was chosen because I'm real. Dear Eagles, this is what you're ignoring. School Board President Marion Ortiz opened the meeting with a brief, solemn statement. We are not here tonight because one student broke the silence. We're here because we, the adults, stayed silent for far too long. The board began reviewing updates from various departments. Legal counsel confirmed that the school had violated several student rights, especially the right to emotional and psychological safety. Technology Committee proposed installing cameras in hallway blind spots areas where bullying often occurred without evidence. HR Committee proposed temporarily suspending Principal Evans pending a formal investigation into leadership misconduct. Then a father stood up to speak. His son was Filipino. We don't need more speeches. We need a system where my son can report abuse without fearing backlash. President Ortiz nodded firmly. That's why starting next semester we are launching the EagleSafe Anonymous Reporting Platform. EagleSafe, Anonymous Student Reporting Tool. Students may report discrimination, bullying, or personal harassment without revealing their identity. All reports will be reviewed within 72 hours. Each case will receive a tracking code to ensure transparency and accountability. In addition, a revised internal discipline policy was announced. Any teacher or staff member who ignores or enables discriminatory behavior will be disciplined based on severity. Each semester will include mandatory training on cultural inclusion, anti-bias practices, and community building. Then came the official reading, Principal Evans, suspended for 45 days without pay, pending a full investigation. No applause, just quiet nods. Not out of gloating, but because for once justice had taken on a concrete form. Outside the boardroom, local reporters waited. One asked President Ortiz, "Do you believe a 15-year-old student just forced an entire system to change?" She didn't hesitate. "No, I believe a broken system finally ran into the one person it couldn't break, and it had no choice but to change. Sometimes it takes a young voice to say what adults have ignored for too long." The next morning, a fresh notice appeared on the school's bulletin board. Official statement from the school board. "We will no longer be a school that teaches students how to endure. We will be a school that dares to correct its own mistakes." Hawthorne Hills High Stadium, Friday night, the last football game of the season. The loudspeakers echoed across the bleachers. Floodlights lit up the crisp, early winter air. Flags waved, slogans stretched across the fences, but they no longer read like empty words. One team, one dream. Tonight it felt real. On the field, the cheer squad stood in formation. In the center, Nia Carter. She wore a new uniform. Not the old design, but a revised version. Her skin no longer felt out of place among the school colors of red and white. She stood taller than every downcast gaze. Not with arrogance, but with calm resolve, like someone who no longer had to prove anything. In the left bleachers, Mr. Jackson Carter sat quietly among the parents. No camera, no cheers. Just watching. Eyes narrowed to hold back tears. On the bench, Ryder sat in silence, his jersey now stripped of the captain's badge. He wasn't playing, not because of injury, but disciplinary action. As Nia led the cheer squad onto the field, he followed with his eyes. No words, just a look and a slow, respectful nod. Nia didn't turn back. As the theme song played, the cheer team stepped onto the grass. Nia raised her hand. She didn't open with a stunt. No flips, no dramatic tumbling pass. She began with a salute, hand over heart. The stadium went silent. Then slowly, student by student, parent by parent, they stood up. Applause rippled through the stands, not for her moves, but for her presence. Then she leapt, a triple spin midair before landing clean. Another wave of applause. No one shouted her name, but everyone stood as she walked off the field. At halftime, interim principal Mr. Douglas stepped onto the field. "We've witnessed a season that has redefined how this school operates, and some students, through sheer resilience, have forced the system to relearn fairness." He called Nia forward. For the first time in school history, a cheerleader, not the football captain, was chosen to deliver the closing remarks. Nia took the mic. No script. She inhaled. "This isn't a victory speech, because I didn't win anything. I lost time. I lost tears. I lost innocence and belief. But I found something greater. A voice doesn't need to scream to be heard. It just needs the right moment." She turned to the audience. "I don't want you to remember me as the first black girl to be chosen. I want you to remember I was part of this team. Not more, not less. And if someone else walks into this place one day feeling like they don't belong, be the first to clap, even if it's just a single clap." She bowed her head. The entire stadium rose. No one needed to say thank you, because the whole school was already grateful, not for her perfection, but for her perseverance. That night, Nia packed up her gear. For the last time that year. Lily walked into the locker room handing her a small card. "You didn't fit in. You changed the shape of the room instead." Nia smiled, folded the card, slipped it into her pocket, then turned off the lights and walked out, like a leader who didn't need a throne. May, 1 year later, graduation day at Hawthorne Hills High. A large stage stood on the grass field. Rows of white chairs filled the lawn under soft golden sunlight. Far in the distance, the flag fluttered gently, just enough wind to make everything feel slower, almost suspended in time. Nia Carter, 16 years old cheer captain, stepped onto the stage. No longer the new girl, no longer the target of anonymous hate. Today she was the chosen speaker, representing the graduating class. She wore a deep navy blue graduation gown, a red stole draped over her shoulders, the color given to students who had made meaningful contributions to the school community. In her hand was a folded, slightly wrinkled piece of paper, but she didn't read from it. She simply smiled and looked out over the sea of students in front of her. 1 year ago, I stood in this place, and no one really saw me. I used to think If I worked hard enough, stayed quiet enough, avoided causing trouble, maybe people would accept me. But what I've learned is this. You can't force people to see you, but you can make your presence impossible to ignore. Down below, Mr. Jackson Carter stood silently, wearing his old military cap. His eyes no longer filled with pain, no longer guarded, only pride unspeakable and steady. I used to be the problem. I used to be the outsider. I used to be hated just for existing in a space where people didn't think I belonged. But what I've learned is, change doesn't start with shouting. It starts the moment you refuse to disappear. She raised her eyes toward the far side of the field, the section where the faculty and school officials sat. Ms. Daniels, now head of the student mental health, gave a small nod. Next to her sat the school's new principal, the first Arab-American woman to ever hold the role. The student council now had 3 members of color, and the school's website had a permanent anonymous reporting button on the homepage. I don't hope to be remembered as a hero. I just hope to be remembered as someone who stayed when walking away would have been easier. And if anyone here today feels invisible, I just want to say, you might not be seen yet, but you are not small. She folded the paper, then lifted her hand, and the entire stage stood up and applauded. No more mockery, no more scrutinizing stares, only real hugs, real handshakes on the shoulder, and the kind of looks that say, you made this place better. A circle closed, not to end something, but to open a path, so that those who come next won't have to walk it alone. As she left the field that day, Nia turned back one last time to the flags, the gym, the bleachers, and she whispered almost to herself, they didn't let me in, so I built the door. The summer after graduation, Nia Carter no longer appeared every morning in the courtyard of Hawthorne Hills High, but her name remained on the school bulletin board, in the training binder of the new cheer coach, and in the memories of those who once watched her walk past, quiet, tearless, unwavering. Lily was still around. They were no longer on the same cheer squad. Lily was focusing on her art scholarship now, but once a month she still sent Nia a hand-drawn postcard, with only one line on the back. I see you. Still. Tinsley sent a letter. Cream-colored envelope. Handwriting slightly shaky like her voice might have been if she were reading it aloud. I'm not asking you to forgive me, but I need you to know I laughed along because I was afraid of being pushed out, and that fear made me blind. Tinsley had since joined the school's volunteer program, working with students who had experienced bullying. A late choice, but the right one. Ryder never wrote. No text, no apology. Just one moment, during an alumni weekend when Nia happened to return to campus. They crossed paths. He stopped, pulled out his earbuds, looked straight at her, and said quietly, you were better than all of us. I just didn't want to admit it. Then he bowed his head and walked away. No apology needed, because once he had been part of the laughter that made her cry. And now his silence was the loudest apology of all. Haley had transferred. No one knew where. Some rumors said she enrolled at a private school out of state. Her Instagram was deleted. No captions, no explanations. Just one final post before the account disappeared. You never know what your silence costs until someone else pays for it. Nia didn't comment, didn't respond. She didn't need to, because in real life, not everyone has to change. Only enough people need to choose not to look away. The world had changed, or at least a small part of it had. A place where her name was no longer misspelled on the cheer roster, no longer skipped over in staff meetings, no longer laughed at behind her back. Now, during freshman orientation, they told the story of the girl who was knocked down in the middle of practice and still rose to lead the team. Not to draw tears, but to remind people no one has the right to take away someone's voice, not through laughter and not through silence. Her name, Nia Carter, appeared in the school yearbook. Underneath a photo of her landing gracefully after a triple aerial twist on the field, the caption read, "They didn't open the door, so I built one." It wasn't just an ending, it was the beginning of a generation who now knew this truth. If your presence is real enough, steady enough, it can never be ignored. The basement, once filled with sweat, tears, and bloodied knuckles, was now lit. The punching bag still hung from the wall. The floor still bore the faded scuff marks from Nia's old sneakers. But the girl who once broke down here wasn't a girl anymore. Nia sat on the old wooden bench, wearing a plain t-shirt holding her graduation certificate from the day before. No gleaming smile, no celebration, just a faraway look in her eyes, as if silently wondering, is it really over? At that moment, Mr. Jackson Carter came down the stairs. No uniform, no stern presence of a former Marine, just a father, with a gaze softened by pride too deep for words. He didn't speak. He simply walked slowly, then sat across from his daughter. Between them, 1,000 memories unspoken. The silence that once taught her how to endure. The crisp, quiet lessons etched into her bones. Let them doubt you. That's your camouflage. You don't need to hit back. You need to hit smart. In. But today there were no more instructions. Just a hand placed gently on her shoulder. Heavy but not burdensome. Firm, but never forceful. Nia looked up. Her father's eyes were slightly glassy, but the same stoic discipline remained. Only this time there was something softer at the corners. He nodded. You didn't just win, baby. You changed the fight. Then he stood and held out his hand, not for a hug, but a handshake, from one warrior to another. Nia rose. No hesitation, no tears. She gripped her father's hand, not to lean on him, but to pass back the torch he once gave her the first time the world doubted her. No more words were exchanged, and none were needed. Because in that moment, no speech, no applause, no photo could mean more than the look in her father's eyes that said, you didn't just survive, you rewrote what survival looks like. Part 20, Legacy the School Gym, Hawthorne Hills High, early fall, a new school year. Morning sunlight streamed through the tall glass windows, casting golden rays across the polished wooden floor and the neat row of cheer uniforms hanging behind the door. Soft laughter, the squeak of sneakers against the court. Cheer tryouts were about to begin. A young black girl, maybe a freshman, stood just outside the door, clutching her gym bag close. Her high ponytail of curls bounced slightly as she glanced around. Not many faces looked like hers. There was a moment of hesitation. Then, her eyes landed on a framed photo on the far wall. Last year's cheer team. At the center, Nia Carter. Not a forced smile, but a confident stance. Proud not from arrogance, but from learning how never to bow beneath judgment. Beneath the photo, engraved in small lettering, "Strength has no color," the girl smiled, took a breath, and pushed the door open. She didn't say a word, but in the way she walked, there was an entire chapter closing behind her and a new one quietly beginning. A legacy, not made of trophies, but of doors, opened by those who came before, so those who come next no longer have to knock.